everyone, welcome to Outlook Business. I'm Shanakshi Chakrabarti and with me is the editor of Outlook Business, Suchetana Ray. Hi Suchetana.
Hi Shanakshi, thank you for having me today.
Great. We are actually discussing the November issue of the Outlook Business, which has just hit stands. So do not forget to grab your copy and catch it online. Let's talk about the November issue. In fact, I was going through it and the issue really talks about India's global economic potential at a time when there is a global fear amongst major superpowers. Will India really come out as that big growth story, as a big superpower? Take us through that and also show our viewers and our audience what the issue looks like.
Thanks Shanakshi for that lovely introduction. Here is the cover. It's called India's Superpower Moves. I think the question to ask is, why are we doing this issue now? India a few months back emerged as the fifth largest economy, and Narendra Modi has already set his ambitions for the next 25 years, where he wants to take India and where he sees India to emerge as a developed nation. So it's been 5 months since India became the fifth largest economy. I thought that this is the right time to see whether India will be able to capitalize on that position and grow the size of its economy, grow its position to a position of dominance. There are certain things that have happened globally since India's entry into the big boys club, the top 5. One is, of course, the intensifying of the Ukrainian war. Inflation is at historic highs, and there are fears that perhaps the recession staring us in the face could be worse than the GFC, which is the global financial crisis which hit the world in 2008. At such a time, with the decisive leadership of Narendra Modi, I thought it's a good time to look at where India stands, whether we can capitalize on our inherent advantages that India has, call it the demographic dividend, the fundamentals of the economy on which economists from time to time have reposed their faith in, which perhaps also makes them call India a sweet spot. So are we in a sweet spot? Are we going to capitalize on it and grow further? That's the question we're asking. And we've asked this question this time to very eminent columnists who are experts and important voices to record in their sectors.
Right. So, but when you mentioned the big boys club, what do you really mean by that? Who are these?
So the top 5. So India is in the club of the top 5. The big boys there would of course be US, which has intense competition with China. There's of course Russia. Putin has global ambitions and hence the war. Hence we are seeing geopolitics play out in a way that we've not seen in the past many years, where he's ready to escalate it to a nuclear war level. Then of course there is also the European power, which is France. Right. And India as of now is at the 5th position. Well, can it take advantage of the global recessionary tendencies and emerge stronger? That's the question.
Another very significant point, in fact, a segment that is covered in the November issue are the various industries, the IT industry, women in boardroom, the Indian cinema, and various other like startups, how can we forget Indian startups? So why is it so important to talk about all these segments and how does this really add to India's growth story globally?
So for a nation which is just over 7 decades old, when you look at its economic progress, each decade will throw up certain sectors which you call the sunshine sectors, which are really the propellant, which are really propelling the country's growth. Starting the 1980s, we saw how IT emerged as India's biggest growth pillar. In 1991, post the liberalization of the economy by Narasimha Rao and his finance minister at that time, Manmohan Singh, we saw that India decided to go the services sector way. So we looked at certain sectors which we think are the sunshine sectors. Of course, IT, because it has been such a huge pillar of growth for India, we have asked our columnists to see whether it can again reinvent itself and push India to another level of growth. IT for us is mostly services. Are we in a position where from services we go to making world-class products? Then there is startups, where we are pondering over the question whether India remains land of startups which are imitations of their Western or Southeast Asian counterparts, or can we see real big innovation coming out of India? Does India have the appetite for an Indian Amazon, for example? Then of course there is education, which we will look into. Then India's talent pool. We have been exporting talent from India for some time now. Is it time to grow them at home and keep them at home? Where is this talent taking us? What is the current situation with the talent pool? Of course, women, a very important issue, because mean, starting from B.R. Ambedkar, we know one of the established paradigms of growth is that you have to let the women in the economy grow. So we're looking at women in boardrooms, we're looking at the advantage of the spending power that women have, whether they at all have it. And finally, we're looking, of course, at cinema. India has always been known to have this, India's always been known to use cinema as a soft power for diplomacy. And of course, wrapped around all of this is sustainability. We are at an epoch where the next 30 years will decide the future of humankind, whether we remain or whether we annihilate ourselves. So therefore, ESG is a very important question we are seeing, because business has to now understand that it's beyond just balance sheets. It is time to look at stakeholders. So are we doing that? Is India mature enough to do that?
A very significant point that you make, that business is perhaps now beyond the balance sheets, and we're actually looking at the stories of all segments across India. Speaking of which, we have industry experts, we have policy makers, and we have naysayers. Now, who according to you makes the most emphatic argument really in India's growth story?
So what we've done is, I listed out the sectors to you. In each sector, we've picked up a topic. We've asked a question. So you have columnists who have weighed in favor of the motion and against. It's a classic debate format. So of course, you have Vivek Debroy, then former Finance Secretary Subhash Garg, who are extremely gung-ho about the economic prospects. Though Subhash Garg also has tones and tonalities of criticism, but they're mostly positive and gung-ho about the economic prospects of India. Then there's Mohandas Pai. Well, he is extremely upbeat about India's prospects. You have Rajshri Birla writing about the future of India Inc. and whether they are doing good for good. And when it comes to criticism or perhaps a tinge of pessimism, you have Mahesh Murthy, you have Pradeep Mehta and others. But overall, we also have covered markets in a very significant way here, simply because that's one story which has remained extremely resilient, whether it's during COVID or in the years after the second wave of COVID. So there as well, what we are seeing is that the very positive voices who have warned against certain edge cases, but overall they are upbeat about the India story.
Fantastic. I think we're all looking forward to the November issue, and like Suchetana pointed out, that we are really discussing and the importance of India's growth story at a time when there is fears globally amongst superpowers. So will India really emerge as a bigger one perhaps? And also do not forget to like, share, subscribe to Outlook Business's social media page. And if I can just borrow the cover from you, Suchetana, this is what our November issue looks like on the stand. So grab your copy right now.
And if you don't grab your copy, definitely go to outlookbusiness.com. You have the digital version there.
Thank you so much, Suchetana. Thank you very much.
Thank you.